Hello and welcome back to episode 18 of Peaking into Success podcast. Today we have an artist that doesn't just sing and write her songs. She does everything from the marketing to creating the beats all in the bedroom. And with her debut album coming out later this year, and her Why Not performance coming up later in the week, we have Emzae. So, hi Emzae, how are you today?
Hi, I'm as good as you can be. I like the fact that the weather has warmed up a lot now, and because that's much more my kind of weather than the just endless winter that we had.
You're a summer bird then.
Yeah, definitely. Spring probably is my favourite, and like early summer. When it gets, obviously, nobody likes when there's a heat wave. But yeah, I'm definitely one of these kind of people who would much prefer it too hot than too cold, I think.
100%, I agree. I mean,
yeah.
It's a reason to go out to the pub and to the pub gardens and go and go on walks and kind of see what's around instead of being stuck in the house when it's cold and rainy and everything. So no, I completely agree with you.
There are a lot of people though who say that they definitely prefer the cold, and they're like, when it gets to autumn and everyone's like, well, not everyone obviously, but a lot of people that I know are like, it's coming to Halloween and all of that, and I'm like Christmas, but I just kind of consider those things to be like, I suppose, like distractions from the cold.
True, they've got to do a lot of motivating things, don't they, in the winter to keep us interested. Bonfire night to try and get you outside in the cold and everything like that as well. Where if they did it in the summer, happily attend every year.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So first of all, of course, I mentioned like your stage name. How was that created? Just for the people listening.
So I was about. So I'm 29 now, and I was about 15 when I came up with that. Okay. So it was basically, I'd always kind of, because growing up, to be honest, like, it's so weird, but I just always knew that being a musician was what I wanted to do. It was always what I dreamt of, like, since I can remember, but I always kind of would daydream about, performing and having a career in music, and I'd always kind of think, well, because my real name is Emma, and there was already like an artist called Emma, and then there was like Emma Bunton, and because I used to love her when I was little. I used to want to be her basically when I was really little and into the Spice Girls and stuff. And I'd be kind of like, no, I need my own thing, because I suppose, at that time, I suppose I was like, I don't know if my name sounds that. I don't know, I kind of wanted to keep it separate, and also my name is quite common, so it's like, there could be like 5 me's, and so I needed something that and I think a lot of bands go like, oh God, it would be horrible having to come up with a band name, because it's hard enough coming up with an artist name. It's like everything's been taken, and you want something that's going to be Googleable, and also it's going to be a username that's going to be available. True. And back then I was kind of like, I want to come up with my own word or like my own name. And most of the people that I liked and stuff at that point, I suppose their names like ended in like E, like a Y or an E kind of sound, or an A, and but I wanted to have something that also like represented my part of my name, because I wanted it to feel like quite authentic. And I suppose also at that time I was trying to make people calling me Ems with a Z like a thing. And they didn't want to make it a thing. But I always liked having the letter Z and things, and it was at that time when we were all like on MSN and stuff like that, and my name would always be like Ems with a Z, and you know, my parents sometimes would call me Emzae or Ems and stuff like that, Emmy, so I wanted something that was like similar to that, but also was kind of, would also be not a word that wasn't taken on it when I was signing up for accounts and things. So basically at that time in like 2009, when I Googled that, there wasn't anything that came up for it, and that there wouldn't be like usernames taken for it either. So I came up with that at that point, and I didn't actually release or post any music or sort of be a musician under that. I wasn't a musician under that name until when I was about 19 or 20. But I had that name, and I would make like artwork. I'd take like pictures of myself and make album covers and stuff, and make my own things just privately.
No, but that's nice, isn't it? So you kind of had the inspiration, and kind of for a lot of people, of course, in the music industry, of course, when they change their name, like I feel like they pick something completely different, and how you've picked something that gives homage to your name is nice, because then, and kind of as you were speaking, of course, about nicknames that your parents gave you, it sounds similar to that. So it's kind of like homely, and it's kind of something you've known. So like for you, it's normal to be called that, and that's nice. It's not like having two completely different names, which is nice.
Yeah, definitely. It's not far away. It's the strangest thing in a way, having a stage name, because there's like, it's like there's a lot of, half the people that you know like through music know you as Emzae, but your family and friends know you as Emma, even though I have a caveat to this, is that my brothers, both of them for some reason call me Emzae. Now I don't know why they do, but I think it started off as like in an ironic way, just like because I suppose they'd be like, you know, it's like pretentious to have a stage name or whatever. Because that was one thing, like when you first like debut the stage name, you do kind of feel like a bit like, who does she think she is, kind of thing. It's really weird. But yeah, they call me it like for real, like around the house, and when they're referencing me, and when they're calling me, or they call it me all the time. And then, but then there was a situation where I was I was somewhere where I was kind of like, I felt like I was attending this thing as Emma, but then someone was like, oh, we've got Emzae here, and I'm like, that sounds weird, actually. Like, so some people actually call me M, or like something that's like a hybrid, basically, so that, you know, it's both. It's a weird thing, but you get used to it over time. And of course, obviously, because I've had that name in my head for so many years, and yeah, it's but it's nice. I think I definitely like. I feel like some people have a really cool name that sounds perfect with their music. But I enjoy having the stage name and it just being one word, and I get to separate that as well. And even though I'm the same person, I kind of get to be like a bit of a heightened version of myself, kind of, and
more of a character.
In a way, I kind of think about this a bit, like, probably on stage a little bit, but I'm still, most of the time, singing very personal things, but that are about, like, my real life. But I think it gives you scope to be able to be able to, like, go into different genres and maybe do things that are more in character and stuff. You can there's a lot, I find that there's a lot more freedom with the stage name, but yeah, each to their own, really.
Nice. So of course you touched on a lot there, and of course kind of with the music, and kind of you come across as very independent. You make all the decisions yourself, like even, for example, the name you chose everything about you, what you do, what you record, what you write, what you produce. Has that always kind of been the goal for you, to produce everything, or kind of has that come of age? Because of course I think that's quite a hard decision to be like, yeah, I'm going to record it, I'm going to write it, I'm going to produce it. The only thing that I believe you don't do is master it, that you said. So kind of what was your decision behind doing everything your own and being independent?
Well, I was going to say, like, strap yourself in, because it's quite a long story. But yeah, so it wasn't, in a way, I would say that it wasn't really by choice. I kind of fell into it being this way for, like, several reasons. So when I was younger and I was, like, coming up with that name on MSN, coming up with Emzae, and making all those album covers and stuff like that, I mean, I was always, like, I have always, like, experimented with trying to make my own stuff. So even when I didn't have anything really to make it on, you know, I'd be, I think I told this story once on a podcast, but they had to remove it because I said the word Nesquik.
Oh,
sorry.
really?
But they, like, when you were a kid, like, I don't know if you remember, there used to be, like, a lot more gifts in cereal boxes and stuff, like free gifts, and I'm sure that there was once, like, sort of DJ software or, like, music software in like a box of Nesquik.
I remember stuff like that,
yeah. And I'd have all of that, and I'd be, like, playing around on that and games and stuff, and I'd always be trying to make my own stuff. I made, like, my own cassette tapes, and was always writing, always just trying to do things. But I think when I was dreaming of, like, the future, I always had this, like, I think most people who want to be musicians kind of have this, like, rose-tinted idea of I don't know, like, a major label, like, scooping you up and, like, saving you and, like, turning you into a star, especially because I grew up with, like, Pop Idol and the X Factor and all of those kind of things, and it gave you the impression that you could just be, like, whisked away, and then everyone would do, you know, you'd you get to do like the fun stuff, and everybody else would take care of most of the rest of it. But I think, well, I suppose, yeah, there was always like a part of me that I had this creative part, and because I used to like dance and I wanted to like act and sing, like do the whole shebang, and I had that side of me, but I also had another side where I thought like my future's going to be, as well as that, I'm going to like get my like straight A's in my GCSEs and my A levels, and I'm going to go off to uni and do all this stuff, and like basically my life kind of changed when I was a teenager, and I got diagnosed with ME, which was a really confusing time, and just a really traumatic time, really. And it kind of it turned everything on its head, because suddenly, like, I had to think about a lot of things I didn't have to think about before, and it was like all of those dreams that I had kind of seemed like, I don't know, they'd gone. Like, I had to give up dancing, I dropped out of school eventually. It just, you know, normal little things were really difficult for me at that time. So it seemed like even then, I was still dreaming of like one day when I'm better, I'm going to go and still be a pop star or whatever. Even then, I was just like so deluded. No, I'm joking. And I kind of, but it did change my plans a lot. So really, I lost so much confidence and became very, very anxious about a lot of things. And so the idea of actually going into a studio with somebody was terrifying. It wasn't something that I felt like I could do. And neither was like putting my stuff out there on the internet. Like, I used to dream of just reaching a place where I would feel okay to put a singing video on the internet. So one thing that I was always able to keep doing was singing, because I could sit down and do that. Like, I could, that was just something that helped me, and that didn't really tire me out a huge amount. So I could always do that still. And I worked really hard on like practicing that, making sure I was as good as possible.
But I mean,
for the future, I suppose.
Sorry, with of course what you said and kind of your story, kind of, that should be, personally, I think, listening to what I've just heard, is that, of course, more, like, younger, up-and-coming, like, artists and anyone in the, like, performing industry, of course, they sometimes take a knock, and to them it could seem sufficient, but in your case, you took a very big knock to, of course, mentally and physically. And I mean, for a lot of artists, like, if they're listening to this, they should take note of, you basically had this idea, you felt like it all got ripped away from you, but as I said, you basically do everything on your own, and I mean, you didn't even feel comfortable, say, going into a studio and recording with someone. But now, of course, I know from what you've got planned for like this year, you're going to be performing in front of loads of people, and that should show us, of course, this is over, should we say, like a 14-year period, am I right?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So, and that shows, it's not been the quickest road, but that should show to anyone that, of course, success can be obtained. It's all dependent on the person, and I give you massive plaudits for that. I think that's an amazing thing, and a lot of people should take note of, no matter what's going on, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. So no, big respect for that.
Thank you. Yeah, that means a lot, really, because, well, obviously, you know, I suppose I don't really think about it as, I don't know, I suppose, like, as I was saying, I think I've always had this attitude of, like, why not me? Like, why can't I do that? No matter what I've been going through, I don't think I've always just, like I say, it's almost felt at times like I've been like deluded because I've just always believed that somehow I would find a way to do what I wanted still. And yeah, so what I was saying before was that, you know, obviously I didn't necessarily want to do things all on my own, but I was, like I say, you know, not, especially through dropping out of school and stuff, I didn't have many friends. I didn't have, you know, I'm not from a creative family, so there wasn't really, it was completely random that I wanted to do this. So nobody in my family knew, like, could give me any advice on that. And on top of that, my family always knew that, like, obviously I was, like, into everything creative and that, and they knew that I liked singing and performing and that, and always supported me with that, but I don't think that they really knew the extent to which I wanted to do it as a career. And I kept that quite deliberately secret as well, because I think I carried a lot of, like, misplaced kind of guilt for kind of stressing my parents and my family out through what I'd been through and just, like, dropping out of school and everything. And all I wanted to do was, like, ensure that they didn't have to worry about me, if that makes sense. So I wanted to just, you know, get a reliable income and some sort of future that where they could, like, breathe a sigh of relief. The last thing I wanted to do was say, like, I want to go to college for music or something. I just didn't feel as though that was on, if you know what I mean.
No, that makes sense.
But I look back at it now and I'm like, no, I feel like they would have definitely supported me, but I think I just felt like I needed to really work on things and prove that I could do it, and that I was good enough and that I was committed, and then come to them and just be like, this is what I want to do. Because obviously one of the things that I'm really, really lucky with is that I can still, you know, live at home. Because, like, with my parents and my brothers, because not everyone can do that, and I'm always aware of that, because, you know, some of my friends didn't have any choice but to you know, have a full-time job and then do their creative stuff on the side, and I did that for a while. So I did eventually, when I was about 19, I got my first job, and I worked until I was about 24, I think. So I saved up a lot of, it was only ever like, I did 2 apprenticeships in the end, but it was like, I was only ever really on minimum wage, and I saved up a lot of that money to go on equipment for music, so that's how I bought my iMac, which I've still got it today. I still make all my music on that. But I'm hoping that after this album I might be able to get like a laptop or something so I can be a bit more mobile. No. But yeah, I'm trying to, I feel like I've gone off on a bit of a tangent now.
No,
so I'll go back to the bit where I was like, I'll go. So I basically just, when I was about 19, that was one of the hardest years of my life, really. Well, like when I was about 19, 20, because I'd been through all of the stuff with the ME and leaving school and all of that. And I don't know if we'll talk a bit more about that later, but when you leave school early, which I did because I literally just couldn't cope with that environment. It's like when you're that age, that is like your whole identity. So it's really hard to, you just lose so much of yourself coming out of that, and you lose so much of your future as well, because like a lot of people maintain the friendship groups that they've had from school, and also it makes your path a lot different, potentially, or just just a lot longer. So I'd obviously been through all of that and was trying to process all of that, but I think I had kind of reached a point where I just wanted to pretend I was normal, really. So I went to, I got an apprenticeship, and it was a part-time apprenticeship, which was actually really hard to get because they don't actually offer many of those, which I don't think, hopefully they do now, and they're a bit more accommodating for like people with chronic illness or disability. But yeah, I got this part-time apprenticeship and I completely threw myself into it, and I was like, I'm just going to be normal now, and I'm going to move up in my career and just get some money and then like go and live my own or whatever. And essentially it was probably too much all at once, and I couldn't cope with it. I did finish the apprenticeship, but basically in the middle of it, I essentially had a breakdown. I don't know why I'm laughing at that. I mean, it just, I don't know, I have kind of dark humour about some of these things. But essentially what it was is that, so I was diagnosed in the end with OCD. And the reason that happened around then is because a lot of those, a lot of like mental illness, and definitely like conditions like that tend to like, come to the fore in like your late teens, early 20s. So that happened for me, and I'd not realised, like obviously now looking back and after all the therapy I've had and stuff, I look back and know that I always probably lived with that, probably like from a really young age. But I didn't know even really what it was beyond media portrayals of it, which are really like inaccurate. So I didn't know that I had that. But when I got that diagnosis, that was the second moment for me that, like, well, it made so much sense. Like, at the time, I didn't want to accept it. It scared me. It annoyed me. But yeah, basically, I got that diagnosis. I then understood myself a lot more, and it helped me. But that moment was important because at that time I was like, well, nothing matters anymore. Like, I don't care. That's when, ironically, I thought, well, if nothing matters, then I'm just going to put my music online. So that's when I kind of started posting. I think first of all, I would post like mashups of stuff. I think just like random. I've always liked to put things that you just don't expect together at all. And especially if it's like bubblegum pop, like like things that people would say were guilty pleasures with like other things. And I would put that up, and then I'd got an iPad when I was 18, and I started, and basically one of my favourite musicians is Damon Albarn, and he and Gorillaz had made an album called The Fall, and it was that was all made on an iPad. And I remember just being like, oh my god, you can make music on an iPad. I'm gonna try and make music on an iPad. So I downloaded GarageBand on iPad, and that was because before then, all my life I'd like been searching for, like, because obviously again, I'd had no formal education in like music production or anything like that, and there was a, like, because like how in Nottingham, for example, you've got like Confetti, where, you know, you can go and learn like music production, and they've got this like amazing facilities and stuff. And I feel like Derby is more catered to sort of if you want to go into engineering or like IT, or, you know, stuff that's more practical or more, well, I think music production is quite practical, but like, you know, it's just like we've got a lot more of an engineering heritage and stuff, and perhaps less of I always feel guilty when I say like less of a creative one, because obviously there's so many amazing people here and so many cool organisations, but the paths just weren't really there for me personally. And also, as I was saying before, it was a bit of a gamble to like to go to college for something that you didn't know would actually get you a job at the end. Like, it just wasn't, it seemed a bit like a dream, like, rather than reality. So I was always looking for a way that I could make music happen, and I never knew, because it's, you know, if you don't know and you've not got like a teacher telling you, it's like, it's really hard to like find the information, and it takes a lot of years to just accrue it. So I'd be trying these different pieces of software, and they weren't really doing what I wanted them to do. But when I found GarageBand iPad, that was like the first thing that I'd found where I could actually make a full song. Like, because before that I was using a program called Audacity, which was a free program, and I did make like a couple of songs that I haven't got anymore, and I'm really sad that I just deleted them, like, and the laptop is gone and everything, I can't get them back. But I made them when I was about 18, 17, and it was, you could do it, but it was really like, it just was clunky and it wasn't right. GarageBand iPad like was so intuitive, and I was like, wow, I can make this full song on here. And basically I just learned everything to do with this program. And I found, because my learning, the way that I learn, I think the best way that I learn is just by practically like doing things myself through trial and error. And that's another reason why actually, and I noticed this when I went back, kind of when I was doing my apprenticeships, and I had to go back like to a classroom environment sometimes, I realised that I'm not good at, and it might be to do with my illnesses, really. I'm not that great at like absorbing that information in that in the present moment, it's not really great for me. But if I have time on my own to teach myself things, and I can read stuff, and I can find things out for myself, and I can maybe watch videos and just like find my own way of doing things, and I'm better at learning. And so I just made songs, and the first ones were really crap, and then and then they would get a little bit better, and then I'd put those ones online. And somewhere all in the middle of this, when I was about 17, I started teaching myself how to play guitar. And I'll be honest about that, I've never got on with it. I can play it enough to make a song, or like to play my songs, but I find it really like physically demanding, and really like, it just feels like my hands weren't made for it, no matter what I do. And I'm always trying to get a bit better, but like I feel like, there's gonna, like, I'm never gonna be like Brian May or anything. But yeah, so I had that I could do, and I was singing, and back then as well, I've always liked to sample random things, like parts of like my surroundings, and like nature sounds, and just recordings that I make. And I was doing that, and I'd put things online on SoundCloud. That's where I started out.
Nice.
And I would. I actually had a kind of. I kind of used to use SoundCloud as like an audio blog, and I would have like my own kind of mini podcast thing, which was nowhere near as good as yours.
Oh, thank you.
It was very embarrassing. I would just talk and share other people's music sometimes, and then I kind of people would get in touch with me from like around the world, because SoundCloud was a really good platform. It was kind of like, I feel like with a lot of these social media platforms, they have a time where they're really growing, and there's a lot of opportunity on there, and then there's like a peak, and then all the advertisers come in, and then they want to monetize the platform, and then it all goes like downhill from there. But this was like when you could post a song, and it could go trending on SoundCloud of like 10,000 listeners or something, and that'd be really good, and it'd bring in a lot of people, and you'd have like quite a vibrant community, and I'd speak to people, like I say, from around the world, and I did, basically I was like, you know how some people say that, so like I was watching, this is completely off the topic.
It's okay, don't worry,
honestly. I was watching the documentary on Gaza, right?
Yes, Gaza.
The other month, and they said that like in the early years he used to go to the opening of an envelope, and like my version of that was I used to collaborate with anybody who would message me.
No.
I mean, that's linked in my head anyway. So it works in my head. So somebody would be like, do you want to collab on this track? And I'd just like, whatever it was, even if it was like, I mean, I suppose there would be probably a line I'd draw somewhere, but there wasn't really much of a line. So I'd just be like, yeah, sure, send it over. I'll record some vocals. And that's probably how I got a lot of my practicing. And I'd record like all kinds of people. There's probably loads of it floating around that just does not sound good. But also people would remix my stuff, and that was really exciting. I still like it when people remix stuff, because I always find that like a lot of like electronic producers and dance people, they work a lot faster than me, and I can just like hand them that, and then they'll come back next week with this like amazing remix. I'm like, how the hell have you done this? But I love it. So I used to do that, and then basically I had this song. So I would half like in the beginning as well. I would do a lot of acoustic songs.
Okay.
And as I say, I was crap on the guitar, so you could tell that. And some of it is just downright embarrassing, like in terms of how bad the guitar is. But I felt like some of the melodies were good and my vocals were all right. And I used to post them, and they'd be quite like melancholic. And because in the beginning, I found it easier to record acoustic stuff because I didn't need to know about, like, it took me time to be able to do electronic stuff. So in the meantime, I was posting these acoustic things. And during, when I was going through the therapy and stuff, I started on antidepressants, and that was if anyone who's ever been on them, you know, it's like a rough few months when you're like getting into them. And I decided, like, I sometimes think like I'm my own worst enemy here, but I decided to write an album whilst I was going through that. So I kind of class it as like a demo album now, and say at the time I was like, yeah, this is my album. And it was like just made on my guitar, and it was basically just everything like really raw about what I was feeling at that time, and put it on Bandcamp. Nice. And a few people bought it, like not a big amount, but I was like, I still actually remember the name of the first person who bought that.
That's
because that was the first person who'd like spent any money on my music, and I was like, like at this point as well, my confidence in myself was absolutely rock bottom, like completely rock bottom, and you know, that meant that everything to me, and it was like this place where I could go, and I was still like not really telling, like my family knew that I was on SoundCloud making music and stuff, but they didn't really know like how much it meant to me, I suppose. And
yeah.
People at work and stuff like that, they didn't really know that I did it. I think I remember I eventually, as I was, because when I went on medication and stuff, I became more, like it was just changed. Like I suddenly felt like I could actually be myself, rather than just like crippled by all this stuff in my head. So I felt then like I could open up to more people, make more friends really. And I did actually start sharing my SoundCloud link with a few people. And I remember this one woman, she was really nice. And she did say, yeah, I've had to listen to them, they're really good. Are you going to like make a happy one anytime soon? And I was like, because obviously I'd write, I mean, I've always, certainly since some of the stuff that's happened, like I've used music very much as like therapy for me, like an outlet and expression, a way to like make sense of things and process things. And at that time, it just happened that everything I was writing about was dark. It really, like, some of them I don't like to listen to anymore. Because I don't feel like I can sort of hear that I wasn't I don't like it when there are songs that I wrote in the past where I can tell that that's like my illness that wrote the lyric, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that 100%
if it's like a perspective from, that wasn't healthy.
But I mean, I know I said to you, of course, before we start recording this, but of course you were like on about your music and the lyrics and like them being sad, and I said to you, of course, like that's how some people make their careers. They have a lane and people can relate to it. This is it. You're always going to have people you relate to in the world. And I think if everyone brought out happy songs, music determines people's moods, and if they're in a certain, like especially me, if I'm feeling, oh, I'm doing this or something, I'll play a particular artist. So I mean, having you, I personally think you're more lyrical, like the words what make your songs. In my personal opinion, I think you've got to. If I was listening to you walking, just to be like, right, I need to listen, I need to have some conversation for you, and I was like, right, I need to concentrate. And I'm not gonna lie, me walking down the street, I felt like I wasn't taking this in, compared to, say, a week. I think it was maybe a week ago. I sat down and I had literally my phone with my earphones in, and I just listened, and I was like, it sinks in. And I think you're very much that vibe. As I know that you're releasing your album on vinyl and stuff, that is where people are gonna have that time where they put it on the record player and listen to it, and that's where I can see it like so clearly, where people take in the words. Is a lot of artists in the past have kind of had their lyrics kind of looked over, where the lyrics make songs, and I think that's your niche. I think if it is a niche, is lyrical, I guess, lyrical genius and flexibility to find the words to express the emotion. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yeah, that's really kind. And no, thank you so much for actually listening to the words and stuff, because that is a really important part of what I do, and it always has been. And because as well, growing up, the other thing that I would do as well as like write songs was I would always be writing a novel, basically. I've always just had probably just an overactive imagination or something, but I'd always have notepads and be like writing stuff. So writing's always been important to me as well, and that's why I also write a newsletter, because it's just an outlet that I enjoy. Like, I'm always writing. Writing's one of my personal hobbies that I do for fun that isn't like monetized, I suppose. I'm always writing stuff like imaginary scripts for like my favorite TV shows and stuff like that. That's how I like to unwind. And so I love like actually writing with a pen, like in notepads and stuff. So, and I write a lot of like kind of poetry and lyrics and stuff. Nice. As I'm going, and the lyrics are really important to me, and I hope that I've got better at that over time, because like going back to those early ones, like I suppose like I feel as well, like as you get older, I think your vocabulary and the references that you can make, and the art that you've consumed, and just your skills just get better, and hopefully this album will be like a culmination of all that the other stuff that I made, because after that kind of project that I made when I was about 20, I then really wanted to quickly after that. I didn't want to become a known as purely an acoustic artist, even though I wouldn't have the skills to be that, to be fair. But I didn't want that to be what people wanted and expected from me. I always wanted to make it clear early on that I was into a lot of different sounds, and I wanted Emzae as a project to be like quite flexible so I was just wanted to make sure that the audience knew that from the start. So I really wanted to make a electronic project as well. So I made like about 3-song like EP quite soon after that album, probably in the autumn. And I put that on Bandcamp. And then I made, so all of these years were like building my skills and learning how to produce, because I feel like you just have to, at some point you just have to dive in and just like, and there's so much that you have to teach yourself and so much you have to learn. So after that, I still wasn't playing live at this point.
Okay.
That was like, seemed absolutely impossible to play live. I hadn't been on stage for years. I was really nervous. Like after the hard time that I had when I was about 20, I felt it was so. Obviously, the medication helped me to a certain extent, like get over some of my social anxiety. But even so, like it was like the combination of all the other things made me really feel just like I couldn't get on the stage, but I knew that I wanted to. So I told like my therapist back in the day, like my big aim would be to somehow play a gig. That was like my big aim.
What was your first gig?
And
sorry, if you don't mind me asking, what was your first gig that you actually
what
did?
was it? So I also want to give a shout out here to my friend Simon, who, because if it wasn't for him, I might not have even played a gig now. Like, but he found me through SoundCloud.
Okay.
And he really believed in my music, and he's a musician as well. He's a really good musician, and just a lovely guy. And he would ask me to like, did I want to play this gig with him? And I'd be like, I literally can't. Like, I don't know. I just, and the thought of, because at that time I had no idea how to get like electronic music from a computer into a live setting. Like, that is something that is really hard to actually Google and find. Like, you have to just work that out for yourself, like, over time. And so I was like, I can't play my guitar in public. But he plays guitar, and at the time he'd asked me a couple of times to do gigs, and I just wasn't in the right place. And then he asked me to, what happened was David Bowie died. So this was like back in like 2016.
Okay.
I felt like really sad about that. And he said that they were putting on a tribute gig to David Bowie, and it was at a place called Fear and Hall in Loughborough, who are really, really nice people, and they do some really cool things. And they were really kind to let us use the hall for a rehearsal space for free for a while, which was just really generous. And Simon and another woman called Autumn Dawn Leader, who is another amazing musician, we worked on like 2 covers. I think one was Changes, and the other, I'm trying to think what it was. I should know what it was, but yeah, I don't know if it was like Man Who Sold the World or something like that.
Nice.
But I just remember Changes mainly. And so also at this time, sorry, it's
okay.
like quite, everything that I'm saying is a long story, but I just want to give some context behind it. So like, also at this time, so briefly when I was about 17 or so, after a few years out, I tried to go back to dancing.
Okay.
This is something that's a big part of my life. But eventually, with everything that happened, I just couldn't like maintain that and a job. Like, it just wasn't happening. So instead, they started doing singing lessons at my dancing place.
Okay.
So I was like, yeah, I'll join this, and it became like this little choir that we had. And so that was another massive thing that helped me. Because it was just like this joyous thing that I do each weekend. And it helped me with, like, it was just like a chance to actually sing out loud in the presence of other people, which I found really exciting, even if it was in this little room of like 4 of us. And then basically I sung so technically my first time back on stage was, we'd used to do like a Christmas performance or like a summer performance at the church, and I sang Memory from Cats, and I just remember I was it's really hard to think back to, because I'm quite chilled out on stage now, I would say, and that's how I always used to be before I got ill. And but that day I was like, because I had a folder with words in it, and I basically held it in front of my face without realising I was holding it in front of my face. And I was like shaking, like my whole body was shaking. And I was so nervous that I couldn't actually, like, I was on autopilot getting through the song, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's the only way I can explain it. Like, I couldn't actually, had no control over my performance or my vocals or anything. I was just surviving up there. I was just getting things done. But I felt so proud, like, after I'd done it. I was like, oh my God, because it had felt like this mammoth journey. Like, I don't know, it's like, it wasn't that, I feel like I'm probably being dramatic, but it was like, to me at that point, it felt like this big, like, yes, I've got back to the place where I wanted to be. I've got back to doing the things that I loved that were taken away. So that was such a big moment. And then when we did the David Bowie thing, again, I was like, my whole body was shaking again. And I was like, oh, this isn't great, you know, because like my leg was shaking, and I was like, oh, and I was like I think I was wearing some boots, and like I was like, oh, am I going to fall over? And I couldn't concentrate, and I just sang changes, and I've still got a video of that, and that was really cool. That was a big moment. So that was like my first. Those were my first times back on stage, but my first actual Emzae performance. Well, I did appear as Emzae at the David Bowie thing, but my first, like, singing some of my own songs on the stage was at the Book Cafe in Derby.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, shout out to Derby. That's my first time playing in Derby. It was, we performed, I don't know if I could do this now, but we performed for 3 hours.
Jeez.
And the 3 of us, I just remember someone said, like, I went to the toilet or something, and someone was like, lovely singing. I was like, but I remember the bouncer just kept asking us to turn everything down.
Oh, wow.
Because it was one of those, like, I didn't, at that time, honestly, I was just so grateful for a start to, like, again, sounds really dramatic, but it's honestly how it felt to me. I was just really grateful to be here.
Yeah.
I was really grateful to, like, be able to sing, to be feeling better, to be like, to have the privilege of being able to perform at that place, to be like hired to do that. And I didn't expect anybody to listen to me. I didn't care if they, I didn't think it was my right to have people to listen to me, or that I was owed that or anything. I was just happy to be there. So, I mean, in like hindsight, obviously those kind of gigs, people are kind of like having their dinner and you're like the background music. So it's a bit like, it can be a bit soul destroying, but in those kind of ones, I've played some of those since, and like, I just personally get to play there. Because again, it was like this thing, like, I think when you're like, things actually take a long time in music. Like, there's a lot, this thing like, when you see like teenagers getting signed by a major label and like becoming huge, it's like, that's not the reality for a lot of people, because it takes so long to actually accrue like the knowledge of like who does what in the local scene, and like how things work. Like, I didn't know anything at all, and like, that's why I'm so thankful to Simon, because he was there to like answer my stupid questions, and with no judgment, and he really helped me. And just even things like, I didn't know like what a PA system was. I didn't know what a sound check was. I didn't know like any of the terms for like live music. I just was completely clueless. So playing with him like really helped me to learn some stuff about that. And then what happened?
Right, so you've told us all about your career and how you've got to the point of basically releasing music on Spotify and it getting out in gigs, and of course you've got a lot of things coming up with, of course, festivals. What you can touch on as maybe a potential big achievement coming up for yourself and may surpass what you currently have. But what do you see as your career high or your biggest achievement so far?
I would say the thing that I will never forget really is my first play on BBC Introducing in the East Midlands. I was eating an apple pie at the time, Morrison's apple pie, and when that happened, it was just like, it was honestly one of the best moments of my life, really, at that point, because it was just like in the middle of a lot of like darkness, I suppose, and it was really nice because it was like a light shining in the darkness, and I couldn't believe that I'd made something that was good enough, considered good enough to be on the radio, and yeah, that was absolutely just amazing. So I'll never forget that.
Oh, sorry. Can you remember, of course, was it BBC Introducing, like, was it on Radio Derby or Nottingham? Like, what station was it on?
So it's actually broadcast across, I think it's 3 stations. So it's like Derby, Nottingham and Leicester, I think it is. So yeah, that's really cool, and they've been massive supporters of me. And the other thing that I'll always remember as well, I think I've mentioned this earlier, but the first ever person who bought anything of mine on Bandcamp as well was just that. I mean, anybody who's got any sort of creative dream, you think about how amazing it would feel to just have one person, like to think that one person would actually like part with their money for something that you've created, and they think it's worth that. Like, that is incredible, and I'll never forget. I still even like I won't say their name, but I know their name in my head as well. Like, I remember their username and stuff like that, and because I made a point of, I'm not actually usually that amazing with things like that, but yeah, I made a point of remembering that, because I remember I was posting about it, and yeah, that was so cool. Other things, when I had my first ever dressing room, that was when I played the Rescue Rooms in Nottingham, and I supported a band called Old Images, and that was like it was an amazing moment for me, because when I was younger, I was like a massive fan of the TV show Life on Mars and Ashes to Ashes, and they were on the soundtrack for Ashes to Ashes, and I would have, like, if I'd have gone back and told my younger self that I was playing, like, supporting somebody who was on that soundtrack, I would have been amazed. And I got to take my first ever, like, crowd selfie there as well.
Nice.
That was, yeah, amazing. I think the biggest gig I've played in Derby, actually, was I played the Christmas lights switch on one year. And that was like one of my first times on a big stage, like outdoor stage like that, and that was amazing.
Did you do your original music for that? For the switch on?
Yeah, it was back. It wasn't when I was doing an electronic set though. At that point, I was still playing live acoustically with my friend Simon, so it was still my own stuff, but it was acoustic, and I was so scared as well because I had to play guitar, and it was like really, really cold, and I could barely feel like the strings. So that wasn't the best, but that was a really good moment. And what else?
I was gonna ask.
Sorry.
I was gonna quickly ask you. Is of course, as you're still growing as an artist, and of course your career high is potentially going to change. Kind of how did Why Not come about? Is of course I've heard from other bands that are playing the same stage as you, and their stories are kind of they performed somewhere and someone like kind of came up to them and said, "Oh, see you at Why Not." Like how did that come around for you? And do you see that as a potential, as you mentioned, open airspace performing? Can you see that as a potential career high coming up for you?
So I've never actually been to Why Not,
Okay.
like even a spectator or anything. I've not really been to many like gigs or festivals that weren't ones that I was playing at, which is like maybe strange, but anyway. But yeah, but I've always wanted, it's not that I didn't want to go or anything. I've always looked at it from afar and been like, wow, I want to play at that. And I've wanted to play at Why Not for a good few years. And I think it takes a long time to get to know who's involved with what and how you get on stages and stuff, and how all of that works. But in the end, it always seems all of the big stuff seems to come down to like a really informal way of finding out. Like this one was just a Facebook message.
Oh really?
It'll just be like, you want to play on this stage, and you'll be like, yeah. Yeah, and you'd be surprised the amount of big things that happen via like DM or something, and like you think you're gonna get like a letter in the post or something, like a golden letter. But yeah, it was. I got asked by one of the. Do you know the Heron Brothers?
Oh yeah, they run stuff at the Vic Inn, don't they?
I'm not sure. I think they have kind of branched out into promoting. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't like know them too well, but I don't know if somebody recommended me or something. But yeah, I got asked and yeah, I'm going to Why Not? Got to think about my outfit. Yeah, definitely that would be, because that's another. I have these like plans and goals, and some of them are just dreams. Some of them might happen. Some of them going to have to be things that you're patient and work hard towards. And this was just one of those that took a while to happen. But yeah, I love playing festivals. I'd love to play some more, and But in terms of...
Are you staying for the whole weekend, sorry? Or are you just going play and go?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to be staying for the whole weekend. We do get a pass for the whole weekend, which would be cool in theory. But it's just unfortunate. It's really unfortunate with like my illness and stuff. I can't really, like, if I'd been out all day, like for 3 days in a row or whatever, and then I'd have to get up and do a gig, like, I wouldn't be able to. It would just be exhausting, and I'd probably have like a crash after that.
Yeah, I understand.
So it wouldn't be like doable. To be at my best, I have to just like do the gig when I'm quite fresh and I've rested for a couple of days for it, and then I can stay on like a little bit afterwards and see a few things, but I wouldn't be able to stay like the whole day really, because it takes a lot out of me performing and stuff. But you know, like I was saying before, I find ways to make things work, and I'll still enjoy myself and stuff. So
that's good. Is Simon going to make a guest appearance on stage with you?
No, he's not actually. We don't play together anymore. But I wouldn't rule out. I'd definitely like do. We used to. I don't think he's played live for a while, but I think we did something at Fear and Hall the last time that we played, because we do really like it there, and I'd be up for like sort of guesting with him on something, because we did a couple of songs together as well.
Nice.
And actually I played the flute on one of them, which was always fun. We did that live a couple of times. So yeah, but he's releasing a lot of his own music, and I think he's working on a new album at the moment and doing like a degree. So he's like really busy, but yeah.
Nice. Do you think, of course, any of your highs have defined your journey, and like, I don't know how to best put it, maybe kind of shifted your mindset, or do you think that kind of I think you're quite methodical with your approach, and how you've spoken seems very, I'm doing this, I want to get to this end goal, these are the pieces I need, and you've kind of, even though, like, for example, you do it all by yourself and you're the multitasker extraordinaire, kind of, do you just see it as kind of, you've got to that point where you're like, right, I need to do this, and that's how I'm going to get to, like, I guess, level up? Or do you think that there's moments that define you and make you think, this is what's got me here?
Well, probably in the early days, when I just started posting on SoundCloud and Bandcamp and stuff, obviously I was in a different place then, and I was like, didn't have very much confidence in myself, and I was scared of a lot of things. So, I wasn't 100% certain that I would, almost like that I would have the confidence or be well enough, or it would be possible for me to actually do music as a proper career or business or anything. So it wasn't like, then I suppose the goals and the aims and stuff were more like abstract in a way. But as I sort of understood myself more, and I got a bit better, and I was and I'd spent more years like in a day job, and I'd learned more about the industry and been out to more gigs. And then I would say that also when I did get played on BBC Introducing, and when I got playlisted by Spotify, those were kind of times which did sort of validate me in a way, gave me like the confidence to know that the stuff that I was producing was technically good enough to be in those spaces, which was a massive thing for me, because I think it took me until like Lucid Dreaming, that's why I consider that to be my first single, because I think that was like the first one that was of a technical standard where I'd learned everything I could about production at that time, and I knew enough to sort of be a part of those things, be in those spaces. So I think those moments definitely made me believe, and some of the like press coverage and stuff made me believe that I could actually be like a full-time musician. And like, yeah, and just like if I'd been at it all these years and nobody had ever sent me a message saying they liked what I was doing, or nobody had ever booked me for a gig, like, obviously all those things do contribute to building your confidence and nudging you in a certain direction. And certain people that I've met along the way, you know, all the creative people, have definitely had influences and impacts on me. And, you know, and definitely, I think definitely meeting Simon as well was one of the big things. As I said previously, without him, I might not have been on the stage now. And I think things happen for a reason. You know, yeah, there's lots of things like that, really. Yeah.
We're going to quickly kind of move on to about the album, but of course you mentioned Lucid Dreaming, and I wanted to ask you a question on it.
Okay.
So I hope you remember every lyric of it, every word.
Okay.
So of course, when you write, I assume that you're going off past emotions for yourself, or like past experiences that you've had. So when was the song, like, kind of, when you were writing the song, how old were you in the song? Does that make sense?
All right. Yeah, it does. So when I'm writing, it's like I'll a lot of the time I'll be writing to like process things or make sense of things or get an emotion out there, or it'll either be like about myself or experiences or emotions, or it could sometimes be about observations I've made or things that I've learned or specific memories. Lucid dreaming is essentially all about when because like it was such a landmark in like my journey, because it was the first time that I'd made something that I really like felt comfortable putting properly out there. I showed it to my parents. They hadn't really heard, don't know if they'd heard many of the other songs before that, really, apart from when I was like singing them in my bedroom or whatever.
Okay.
And then and the same with, you know, it was just the moment where I started to just be more open about what I was doing. Because again, I wouldn't really mention it to like even friends on Facebook, for example. I wouldn't mention it to them. Like I just wouldn't mention it. So with that, I did, and I started just being honest about what I love to do. And as I said before, you know, when you do grow up in like an area where there's more of an engineering tradition and like less of a creative tradition, and you're not from a creative background, and you've also had like you know, you've sort of worried your family have been worried about you in terms of like how are we going to make sure that she's going to be okay moving forward, and that she's going to have like a stable career and whatever. You don't want to then come out and say, it feels a bit like you're saying like, oh, and I'm going to run away to the circus, basically, on top of all that. So it's really, you know, so I spent a long time, I think I mentioned this earlier as well, but I spent a long time, you know, trying to hone my craft, if you like, trying to really practice, and that's what those early years were, just to try and, so that I could present something to my parents and say, like, this is what I do, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm really serious about and always have been, and I've been waiting for this moment to, like, show you that I am. And when I knew that you wouldn't be able to turn around and say, like, you're not committed to it, or have any doubts about it, basically. And to be fair, they probably would have supported me anyway, but it's just like, those are the kind of things that you go through if you've been like in my situation. And so lucid dreaming itself is about that kind of time when I was at work, but I was so excited about all the music that I was making and all of the like things that I was doing and the opportunities that I was getting, and I just would be, sorry, my chair's squeaking.
Oh, it's okay.
So I would just be like living these two separate lives, and I would be working all day in like digital marketing, and then I would come home and I would have to then market myself, if that makes sense. I would have to like, I'd come home and I'd have like a little nap, and then I would come up and work for as long as I could on music, and it was exhausting and it wasn't sustainable. And you know, when I would, so I'm saying in it like that I'm going through the motions, like I'm just I'm on autopilot in my day job, just doing what I need to do, but my heart, like my mind, is like dreaming of doing what I do now, which is just music full time. And I'm like, oh, I just wish that I could be there. And it's just like how in everything that I was doing, it's you know, it's about becoming who you really are as well, and just admitting to something that's been a part of your life for since you can remember. So I'm making references, like in the first verse I would say I'm like myself when I wrote it, like my age when I wrote it, and then the second verse I'm like making reference to like being a kid and always like wanting to perform and always knowing that I loved music, and that was, if it wasn't a part of my life, like I couldn't just get rid of that or just pretend it didn't exist and just go into the normal world, if you like. And so yeah, that's what that's about.
Nice. I think your music just has layers to it. Of course, just everyone has a time where they're like, am I in the right job, or am I doing the right thing, or like even I'm in the right relationship? Like people think, am I doing the right thing all the time? And I feel like that song sums it up for everyone, and everyone can take a different portion from it. That was your mindset, and how you explained where you were at the song when you made the song. But of course, it has so many layers. Like as you said, you've kind of written about the time, like present day when you were writing, then going back in time and stuff, and it's kind of, I don't know, it feels like a story, but you don't know who the main character is, which is interesting, because then that can be adapted to any person, can't it? If they can find familiarities with your words and listen to the words, that then of course I don't know, it feels like a lot of people can find similarity with your writing and put it to their own lives, and then that's where you're gonna hit and strive further, because so many people can relate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's like a really insightful way of looking at things. And you know, I always want to say as well, like, obviously though my music is written to be a lot of it's quite personal to me, or like really not quite, like it's literally about my life, but you know, I also know that when it goes out there, I feel like I like the idea that other people could sort of take it to mean what they need it to mean in that moment, because I've definitely got songs like that from other people that probably mean like the opposite to what I think they are or what it means to me, and like, but that still means something to you. So like it, you know, I'm fine with that, and I like to hear other people's interpretations, because I think it's just really interesting to see how other people interpret the art that you create, I guess.
Nice. So of course we just kind of spoke about your first As You Classic release. So is the new album the same tone and the same vibe as your earlier stuff on Spotify, or is it a complete change or genre change?
So again, I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier already, but when I started first putting stuff online, I didn't, like, I always knew that I wanted to, I basically always had the kind of lucid dreaming sort of stuff in my mind and all the stuff that I've made for this album, but I didn't really know how to actually do it. So what I did know how to do a little bit, not very much, was play guitar. So I did a lot of acoustic stuff, really melancholic stuff in the early days, and that was really raw, and I would just finish something and just put it out there. And in many ways, like, I miss that time, because it was like I didn't care what people thought, really. I had nothing to lose. I felt like I just used SoundCloud and stuff, and Bandcamp as like audio diaries kind of thing, and like I would just not care if it was polished or anything, because at that time I suppose I was too scared to like do a full release or like send it off to anybody and have it like featured on a website or something. That was like scary to me. So to me it was like just my little place where I could put like works in progress and raw stuff, and probably stuff that I thought was really good at the time. And then when I realised, I sort of learned more about things, and then was like, no, it's got to be more polished than that. So yeah, and then as I say, Lucid Dreaming was the first thing that I released that it was supposed to be like, because I'd made an acoustic album. I did an EP, and then I did a electronic album that I released on a cassette on Simon's cassette label, and it was kind of evolving, but again still wasn't probably where I'd want it to be. And then when I released Lucid Dreaming, I was like, yeah, this is good enough. So then I decided that the next album that I was working on, that would be like my first proper official release, where I would, actually put it on a physical format. Like, obviously it wasn't on cassette, but it was only like, it wasn't many cassettes, like it's very small release, and I knew that I wanted to like properly market it and send all these press releases off, and I was actually performing live. Like, I wasn't even performing live when I released those other things, and there was a big gap in between them. So I was like, no, I'm going to call this my debut album, which I felt weird about, because I didn't want it to seem like I was lying or deceiving anyone or anything like that, because but I think it's actually really common. I know other artists who deleted some of their stuff or just made it like unofficial kind of thing, or change things around, or so a lot of people like change names to do that, but okay. I couldn't come up with another name. So I was like, yeah, I'll call my debut album. So it's kind of like, I think it's just I could have only made this album at this time in my life, like, and I needed to make it. I started making it probably around the similar time to when I stopped sort of seeing a psychologist, which was quite a big moment in my life because I basically didn't know what it was really like to be an adult without that. So it felt like I'd reached this point where I knew myself a lot better and I knew what I liked, and I'd had all these years to practice and hone my skills, and I was like, right, now I'm ready to actually devote my time to this project. So it does sound, anybody who's been listening to me for a while, you'd still hear the same artist. Like, it's not completely, it's basically the same genre, but it's just a lot more fleshed out and a lot more professional.
Nice.
So yeah.
What's the name of the album? If you mentioned that, are you allowed to mention that?
yeah, definitely. So the album is called All Those Things I Thought I Knew, and I'm going to be releasing it on my own label, which I've just created as well.
That's Zirconia, isn't it?
Yeah. Zirconia Records, and that's basically just, at the minute, it's a vanity label that I'll be releasing my own stuff on. Maybe in the future I'd consider like expanding it to something, but it's going to be, that's going to be quite a slow process. But I'm really proud to be like self-releasing, it took me a long time to come up with the name of the album. Like, I hadn't got the title until I'd finished making all the songs, really. Like, that was one of the last things that I did because I didn't know what to call it. Because obviously it's been written and recorded over like 6 years, and it was like, what's the title that reflects that? And so what I chose in the end, it's supposed to mean like, it can mean like several different things. Like, for me, it means, I went through my life up until a certain point thinking that I was sure and certain of like who I was going to be and where I was going to go, and I had these visions of the future and stuff, and I thought I knew that it was going to happen. So it's like all those things that I thought I knew, and that changing and coming to terms with that. But also it's kind of something that I think that moving forwards as I get older, I'll also look back on that album and be like, all those things I thought I knew. So it's a bit of a reference to like my 20s, and also a reference to, before that. And so I thought in the end, after everything that I whittled it down to, and, because I had a big spreadsheet and I'd like written all these like themes of the songs and the lyrics and everything. And it was things like the future, questioning, self-doubt, change, uncertainty, the modern world, like, learning to accept yourself, things like that. And I felt that was the title in the end that encapsulated a lot of that. And it can, as I say, it can be like, it can mean a lot of different things depending on what you want to take from it. But yeah, it's got 12 tracks on it. I'm so happy with it. It's coming out on, it'll be available to download and stream, but also it's available on vinyl, that has been the biggest learning curve and the most ridiculous investment I've ever made. And it's a wild ride. Those vinyls are supposed to be coming through my door in July. And I'm a bit nervous about where I'm going to store them all, but, I'm just going to have to roll with that. And, it's going to be really cool. This is just the craziest adventure, because those other times I could just drop things on Bandcamp and I wasn't really worried, about what they do, or anything like that. And this is just on a whole different scale because I've had to plan it months and months in advance, doing all my own PR, doing all my own artwork, the music itself or the social media or everything like that is just on another level, and it's been very tiring, but more so really looking forward to it. And I just really hope that somebody out there will listen to it and be like, yeah, this is like, I can relate to so much of this. Like, obviously I wish people didn't to some of it, but you know, I feel like if I had to explain the album, it's like almost, I feel like our 20s are like the most romanticized decade in pop culture and the media, and it's usually a lot of songs about like partying, excessive partying, like I don't know, toxic love affairs, stuff like that, all of that kind of thing, which it absolutely has its place and stuff like that. But I feel like there's also, for every person who is doing that, there's also a lot of people like me who felt very much like an outsider, quite isolated, couldn't physically or mentally do a lot of the things that were depicted on TV and in films and in music videos, and all the things that we, you know, compared ourselves to others for, and, you know, you can feel quite lonely in that. And some people who feel like they just see the world and experience the world differently, people who don't feel like they really belong even though they really want to, just all sorts of things like that, which I feel like just need to be talked about more in a catchy pop song, and I've tried my best to do that and put everything into it. It's also got, during the making of process, I made regular like video diaries and audio diaries that hopefully one day I might turn into like a little short film, and all of those like little clips of those where I say things that I might have picked out to be like, oh, that was quite relevant, or that was quite insightful, or whatever, you know, that was a moment where I realized something. Those little clips are like used throughout as like subtle narration of the songs, and I just really hope that, like, I listen back to it and I'm like, I'm proud of that. That is 6 years of work of writing so many different songs, a lot of them scrapped, but then a lot of them refined, hours and hours and hours, like in this room that I'm in right now, in this chair I'm sat in right now, just like honing these songs. And I just hope that people feel the heart that I've put into it, and that it makes people think or feel something. And if they just find it a bit catchy, a bit interesting, then that's all right as well.
Are you going to upload the video things potentially to your YouTube channel? And my second question was going to be, is there any music videos in the pipeline that you're going to put on as well, so people might have visual as well as audio of your music?
So I'm on YouTube. I've got, for this album, there's I've never done any like massive like HD videos. I've never done anything like 4K or anything like that. I kind of tend to I just don't have a camera like that, so a lot of the time I have like more like lo-fi style. But there's videos for Lucid Dreaming, Another Lesson Learned, As This Day Fades to Another, and I Guess Anyway. I'd like to do maybe one more video for the album. There's like, I have a bit of a, I'm not going to share what it is, just in case it doesn't come off, but I might do something after the release, like when I've got a bit more time and I'm a bit less stressed, and put that on. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that.
Nice.
And I'm thinking about the people who who aren't as well as I am, like who've got the same thing, and some friends that I have who definitely, like, you can't really go out, just other people like me basically, and also people worse off than me who just who feel kind of like they just need someone to be saying some of the things that they're thinking that they don't really hear that much. So I mean, I'm not, hopefully that doesn't sound really big-headed, because I'm not
not at all.
in that I'm like huge or anything, or that I'm reinventing the wheel or anything. But you know, I just hopefully. And one thing that I did want to say is that obviously, the music that I've made is really personal to me and stuff, and it's all about a lot of it's about like my life and stuff, but as well as that, like, I hope that doesn't, I still want, like, when you were relating that music to yourself, like, that's what I want as well. Like, it doesn't have to be, I want people to make whatever they want of the songs as well, because that's important. And I think when your work is out there, it's like not really it is your own, but it's like up to people to make what they want to make of it. And if you or anybody found something to relate to in the song that it wasn't actually about, like, that's fine. I'm fine with that, and I think that's really cool. And that's the nice thing about music. And I've always been like I've always wanted to go and dissect people's lyrics and be really excited about trying to figure out what they're saying. And like, sometimes I've wondered, like, should I even say what it's about? Like, keep a bit of the mystique. But I'm just like, but I do share quite a lot of what it means. And I think that's really cool.
So, well, I don't know if you've touched on it already, but is there anything you think you'd do differently if you did it all again? Or if you don't think so, is there one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self, or anyone that could be in a similar situation to you?
Okay. Things that I do differently. I don't really like to. I don't really like to have regrets and stuff. I used to think, like, I don't want to have regrets because it means that I would want to actually live all of that through again, and I don't want to.
No.
So I would say everything kind of happens for a reason, and it's where it becomes like part of the reason why you are where you are today. So, but differently, I would say it would have been nice if, I definitely look back a lot and wish that I could say to my younger self that, like, who you are is okay, like, and that just keep going. And just, I think I would just give myself a hug and tell myself that, because I didn't like myself very much, I don't think, when I was younger. And I would say, like, you're worth it, like, you everything's okay, and keep believing in yourself. But I always believed in myself, even if it was like hidden, and just like, you're worthy of, like, love and friendship, and it's like, none of, like, this isn't your fault. And I would, it takes a long time, and it was only recently I was involved in a initiative with a charity called Attitude is Everything. It was called the Future Leaders Program, where basically, like, I don't know how many of us there were, like 12 disabled or chronically ill musicians or people working in the music industry. We were all on a program where we basically had mentorship, and we learned things and went on a couple of trips and that, and got some training. And it was through that really, that I realised that I carried a lot of like shame and guilt for my own like illnesses, basically. Because life is not always easy. With, you know, there's a lot of like, you just feel, you know, it because obviously I think because of what your family go through and how upset they are and how scared they are and like how much concern they have to have for you, and you kind of feel like you're a burden, and especially with ME because of the some of the what's the word, like the stigma, like attached to both mental and ME, and like this is similar to like long COVID, I suppose. And you know, there's a lot of some doctors and stuff, like still to this day are like, oh, it's all the psychological thing, like, you know, there's a lot of stigma attached to it, basically. So you start to get these ideas that you don't, like, maybe you're not ill after all, even though it's like, it's just messes with your head. And then, you know, you go into the workplace and there's certain situations where maybe you needed some, there was like an access requirement that you had, and you were like, everyone with a chronic illness or a disability goes through experiences where people aren't accommodating, or they don't understand it, or they kind of make you feel as though it's your fault, or that you're not good enough, or you're inadequate. And so you just build up these things over time where you feel a lot of guilt and shame, and you absorb, you know, you take that on yourself. And I would tell myself, don't feel that, it's okay, it's not your fault. Now I'm starting to like shed that a little bit and become more comfortable and proud, and being on stage definitely helped with that. And I feel really empowered when I'm up there, and I can say, like, I even talk about some of this stuff on stage sometimes, and I would hide all of it away, but I would just say, like, so I would say that to myself.
Perfect.
To other people, I would say, don't give up. Just don't give up. Always have, no matter what background you're from, or what limitations you have, or what challenges you face, or who's told you that you can't do something, or who's told you that you're not good enough, or whatever that has happened, or never lose the why not me though kind of mentality. Never look at something and think that's not for me. Like, it can be, like, there's always a way, and the way might not be easy. It might be like, it might be ridiculously tough, and you might have to make a lot of sacrifices and a lot of like, and come up with new things and like make your own things. But there's always going to be a way if you dedicate your time to it. It might take a long time, but if you have a dream, there's always going to be a way of making it happen, even if you have to adapt it, you know, whatever you have to do. And I'm not like 100% where I want to be yet. You know, I'd love to be making a comfortable living out of music. You know, I'd love to perhaps be able to be more independent through that. But I've made a lot of progress, and I'm really proud of where I've come to. And, you know, just you can do it, and you will do it. Don't give up, and don't listen to people who tell you that you're crap, or who dismiss you, or who try and give you advice that is not the best. Just believe in your own vision, basically, and you can do it.
No,
hopefully,
brilliant.
Enough.
No, they're beautiful words. Thank you for the advice, I guess. I'm gonna do really quick fire questions with you just to round up.
Okay.
So.
Sorry if I've gone on for so long.
No, don't be. It's good. It's got the whole kind of story out and everything. So no, it's perfect.
Okay.
But just first thing that comes to your head. So go to karaoke song. If you went and performed a song, or it can even be. It can even be, say, for example, some people would use a cover they perform on stage if you want to go by that way as well.
No, luckily I actually did karaoke like last month.
Oh, nice.
And I did Smack That by Akon. By Akon featuring Eminem.
Nice.
And it was surprisingly tiring. Yeah.
I bet. Did you do Eminem and Akon's lyrics?
It was actually with Simon, who I mentioned earlier.
Oh.
And we both did it together because I knew it more than him. And basically, we have a joke that Eminem's rap in that sounds like he was basically forced into it and was really bored during it. If you go and listen to that, I sort of make up a whole story in my head about it when I listen to it, where it's like he's been banging on about this song he's got called Smack That for like years, and Eminem's like, do I have to? And he's like, yeah, come on, please, I did this for you and it's for you, and he's like, fine, I'll turn up and do it. And it sounds exactly like that in the song. So, we did it. But it was, I didn't expect it to take so much of your lung capacity to do it. So I had to like hold the mic over to Simon to sing the bit where he's like, oh. You know that bit?
I know what you mean.
I've probably done that way out. I'm like handing over the mic like, oh. That was it was really fun.
Nice. Favourite TV show?
Anyone who follows me online knows that I religiously watch EastEnders, and I also even watch the classic EastEnders, probably as much as I watch the normal EastEnders. Would I say it's my favourite? No. I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
But my favourite, as I said earlier, I'm a massive fan of the shows Life on Mars and Ashes to Ashes. So probably, if I had to choose, probably Ashes to Ashes. I love that. But I do love 90s EastEnders. It's like my comfort programme, basically.
Nice. What is your gem of Derby? So if you brought someone, say for example, someone that's never been to Derby, and you can only show them one thing, what would you show them?
I would take them to... do you know the place called Harry on... it's like a little street food place.
I do
like
know
opposite the cathedral.
Yeah.
I would take them for some food there, probably, because that's just delicious. Or if not, just take them to the Inti Centre. You know, you can't go wrong. You literally can't go wrong, though.
True, it's got everything in nowadays.
What'd you say?
It's got everything in nowadays, hasn't it? That
I mean, it has. It truly has. It's got a really good... I'm not even joking. I've been to other shopping centres, and the layout of the Inti is really good. You know, it could do maybe a few more seats, but I would take him there. Yeah.
Wicked. What is your dream venue to perform at?
Well, to me, like you know how like I used to play on a game called DJ Hero, right? When I was younger.
I know it. I used to have it.
Yeah, you know how there's like there's different like venues, and it's almost like you're leveling up to like the boss level or whatever.
Yeah.
I consider that to be like the pyramid stage at Glastonbury. Right, so that's like my boss level, but I'm aware that's not going to happen, right? But I love playing at like festivals and stuff, so I love places like that. I'd love to play like in a theatre, to be fair.
Okay.
Because I'd love to put on like a theatrical type of performance with my music, tell a story with it.
That's doable though, isn't it?
Yeah. What did you say, sorry?
I said that's quite doable, the theatre thing, with the amount of like...
Maybe.
Theatres, you can range from 100 seats to, of course, your bigger capacity ones. So, I mean, it's doable. It's all part of your levelling up scheme, isn't it? So
yeah, definitely. Yes, places like that I love. I've played like I'd love to play maybe the main stage at Roxy in Nottingham.
Nice.
I've played the basement bit, the little bit, but I'd like to play the main stage there. I want to play what's the new one that's coming to Derby, Beckettwell Arena.
Oh yeah.
I want to play that.
Get in there.
Yes. I want to play like the roof of the assembly rooms, like let's just do it all.
I'm sure the roof of the assembly rooms isn't even safe. I think that's the reason they've not reopened it. But
a hazard.
But go with it, isn't
the
it?
Hippodrome and like play in there.
The acoustics are meant to be bad though. That's your only issue with the Hippodrome.
Yeah, true. We'll make the acoustics good and then like play there.
There you go. And then this kind of rolls on from the venue.
Okay.
So who would you want to collaborate with? So say for example you're at this dream venue and you say, oh, now I'm bringing out such and such. Who's that person that you want to bring out and collaborate with?
Britney Spears. I'd bring her out and I would just hand over the gig to her. I'd get in the audience and that would be that.
But fair play.
I'd just watch her and, you know, we'd all have a great time.
There you go. No, that's easy and it makes your job a bit easier, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just to like round up, where can people find you? And of course you've said your handles, but like just repeat it.
Oh, yeah.
Your website as well, the newsletter, everything. Go mad for it now. This is your time to shine with it.
Okay, everyone, get your snacks out again. It's time for me to promote my links. So I'm at Emzae Music, EMZAE, is how you spell it. Emzae Music on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. Yeah, let's talk about that better. And then, and then my official website is emzaemusic.com. I'm on Spotify, I'm on Apple Music, I'm on Amazon, I'm on Tidal, I'm on YouTube, SoundCloud, everything. Nice. Bandcamp, emzae.bandcamp.com. You can order my album either digitally or by vinyl. I've got like 250 copies. I would like to get rid of them. Get that on Bandcamp or my official store. What else? I'm playing my next gig, as of when we're recording, is at Why Not Festival on the Sunday at 12 at the Hog and Barrel stage. And then I'm then preparing for my big gig, my album launch party, which is on the 1st of September at Rough Trade in Nottingham. That's one of my favourite ever venues, and I'm going to perform my album in full. I'm then hoping to come, because I want to do something in Derby, because obviously so much of the album, I mean, there's even references to Derby in that album. So I really want to come here and do something. So I'm in the early stages of putting together like a listening party for the album at Dubrek.
Nice.
But I haven't confirmed that, the date of that yet. And then hopefully I'll be doing I'm doing an in-store performance at HMV in Derby, which is like a dream. That's like a dream come true for me.
I've never seen them do a live performance in HMV in Derby.
They actually do it. They do it quite often. They're really, really good with local artists in all the HMVs. They're really accommodating. But the one thing about that, I'm actually quite nervous about that, because you can't actually have drums in that performance, because apparently the Interview Centre will be like, no, switch her off. So so I've got to figure out a way to do that. But anyway, I'm performing there. Hopefully it'd be cool to go out on a mini tour next year, probably.
Nice.
And I'm going to just be doing loads of promo as much as I can muster. So and every follow, listen, everything counts, and I'm incredibly grateful for every single person, and also for doing this podcast, and thank you for really taking the time to listen and
no, of course,
not to the music, but to my story, and for making such insightful comments on things, and I really appreciate that.
Anytime.
You taking the time to do that. Thank you.
No, thank you. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Peaking to Success podcast. If you enjoyed, please make sure you follow us on Spotify as well as Instagram, where you can see all the updates of who is coming up, as well as who has already been on the podcast, as well as Twitter, where there is information and interaction from me on there as well. Thank you.